next, I would like to introduce, we're really honored to have our next speaker because he's the seminal thinker in academic Jain Yoga Studies. I think he's already been cited several times in this conference so far, and he probably will be a few more times. Certainly by myself as well. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Christopher Key Chappell. He's a Doshi professor in Indic and comparative theology and is a director of the Master of Arts in Yoga Studies at Loyola Marymount University, LMU. He has published more than 24 books, including some of my favorites, Reconciling Yogas from Routledge in 2016. You can see how many times I flagged this one. That's how much I use it. And then another really important book, the edited volume on yoga and Jainism here from Routledge as well. Some of my favorite works and several others. He has some of my favorite books have been written by Dr. Chappell. So everybody, please welcome Dr. Christopher Key Chappell.
So I invite you to enter the space of bodily symmetry. And this symmetry is about subject and object. It's about our right side. It's about our left side. It's about our feminine side. It's about our masculine side. It's about Shiva and Shakti. It's about those images of the Tirthankara, which, as you can see a little bit in my background, in fact, end up being androgynous. And all of this conversation is premised on a theory, ultimately, of the Sukshma Sharira. And this is where Samani had brought us toward the end of her presentation, the very many levels of body. This is one description from the Sankhya-karika. If we had more time, we would dwell with. And again, the instructions in Tibetan Buddhism, this relationship between our subtle body and our physical body, inseparable. So I'm going to set us in a context of bodily perfection to begin with, and invite you to just consider this imagery of the Buddha. Recall 32 marks of perfection. The Buddha is described as with eyes pure, large, as broad as the blue lotus, with teeth white, even, close, snowy as white jade. Virtues, bodily virtues, resemble the boundless great ocean. The Buddha body's radiance is like a golden mountain. It is clear, pure, peculiar, without equal or likeness. Similarly, we have this remarkable attention given to the body in Jain traditions as well. And in the Svetamvara text, the Apapattika Sutra, the Jinnah is exceedingly tall. His body is perfectly proportioned. The arrangement of his bones is of a rare type, affording him the extraordinary strength required for him to endure all sorts of attacks, supernatural, natural, and man-made, and to practice the extreme austerities required to burn off his karma. And unlike us, his digestion is always perfect. He never suffers from gas or diarrhea. And like a bird, he can digest anything, even stones. Again, those teeth, and certainly not my teeth. He has perfect teeth. His shoulders, and certainly not my shoulders, his shoulders are broad. His chest, as we know from the statues, marked with the Srivatsa sign. He has a charming line of hair on his belly, and his genitals are concealed, like those of a fine stallion, the foreskin. The bottoms of his feet are red like a lotus and soft like its leaves. Every limb is radiant with light. And this description continues, leaving no part of the body untouched. And then from the Yoga-śāstra, from Hevachandra, one imagines a person sitting as this image of the Tirthankara in the Paryanka pose, crossing the legs, placing the hands over the navel, If one imagines the two knees are joined by a line from the right shoulder to the left shoulder to the right knee, from the forehead to the hands, perfect symmetry. But what is this thing that we call the body? As we heard just now from Symmetry, we have this gross physical body, the akarika. We also, however, have these, and these are not hierarchically arranged, we have a transformation body. We can change. We also have a translocation body, an aharaka, through which we're able to put ourselves imaginally and emotionally in the company of the saints. We have a fiery body. Again, can be stirred up during Kayot Sarga. A body through which we are able to perform tapas. We are able to dislocate those difficult places within our karma body, our karmana. The sukshma sharira wherein dwell the vasanas and the samskaras. And as we heard earlier, in order for us to endure the tajas, in order to burn off those karmas, we have to be able to sit, we have to be able to stand. And it was said earlier that the Tirthankaras had this remarkable firmness within their body, within their joints, that allow long periods of sitting, long periods of standing, in order to stir up the tejas, in order to burn the samskaras out of the sukshma sharira. And this firmness is samhanana. And this is related also in this conversation of body to the symmetry body. And we saw earlier this sort of introduction. What is this thing called symmetry? One side and the other. And we saw this beautiful symmetrical form, like a Kayot Sarga, but in Padma-asana. So what is this samstana, this symmetry that allows the release of the samskaras that manifest through the subtle body into the stula sharira? And this symmetry can be sama, chaturasra, can be in all four zones of the body, one side and the other, upper parts and lower parts. And it gets in places of distress where the upper part is symmetrical, but the lower part is not. That below the navel is symmetrical, but the upper part is not. There can also be a hunchback where the hands, the feet, the head, the neck are symmetrical, but the breast and the belly are not, the kubja. We can also have a manifestation of the body that is miniaturized, vamana, dwarf-like. Or we can have someone who is born into a body that is radically asymmetrical, or hunda. And I think if we do a little bit of an internal check, we know our bodies well enough. I remember going to the shoe store as a little boy, and he put that foot measurement on one foot and on the other, and said to my mother, "Oh, one foot is differently sized than the other." We might want to compare ourselves to the bodies of the Buddha or the Jinnah and say, "Oh no, but not all is lost." And this is from the Svetambara Upadhyaya, Meghavijaya. You can see his dates here. Is for physical prowess, men or women who were lame, dwarfish, or subjected to extreme illness, hunda, are not prevented thereby from attaining moksha. For there is no fixed rule concerning their incapability. Merely having deformed limbs is not determinative in this matter, because moksha is possible even for those who have the samstana, the asymmetry of a hunchback or a dwarf. And Christy Wiley, quoted earlier, does remind us that according to Padmanabh Jaini and others, it is believed by both Svatambaras and Digambaras that the entirely unsymmetrical or deformed body is the result of extremely evil karmas in past lives. However, having a body of this kind is not considered to be an impediment to the release of karmas. And I have had the good fortune to sit some years ago with Pandit Dheeraj Lal Mehta, and he is quoted by Christy Wiley, who also met with him, as saying, people can do it. People can advance on the gunasthanas regardless of their body type. And this is quoted from her dissertation. And I wanted to just give a few heartening examples across traditions. And this is Baba Sant Nagpal, who my wife and I had the good fortune to sit with in the Chadapur temple, which at the time was the largest temple in India in 1994. And he had a severe case of polio and was, at the time of his life, considered a remarkable saint. And it was wonderful to take his darshan. And again, his bodily form compromised. So I wanted to lift up some contemporary figures that have brought this conversation, and I know that I'm at time, so this will go quickly, that brought this conversation a little bit full circle. And Dr. Modiyama on the right says that the fascia within the body, which brings constraint, which contains a wateriness in that fascia that holds the memories of samskaras and vasanas, can systematically, as we heard with Kayotsarga, can systematically be released. And he inspired Paul Grilly and his wife Susie to develop a form of yin yoga that, like that image of the little boy in Kayotsarga lying down, encourages people to be able to release those constrictions. Similarly, I wanted to share a little bit about a type of body work. And we know from Ayurveda that massage is very, very central to health practices in India. And Ruel Kazanchian had come to Los Angeles as a young person to study with Emily Conrad, who developed a body movement system called Continuum, and eventually became a teacher of ortho and practitioner of orthobionomy that physically works with the release of holdings that are due to difficulties and constrictures within that fascia. And similarly, for decades, this physical yoga teacher in Santa Monica, and we're doing an event in her honor tomorrow, developed slow, long holds. And you could see a little bit of Kayotsarga in this particular move, sort of a dynamic Kayotsarga. But again, the idea about the release of constricting energy. A lot of science, as somebody had shared. The Yoga Sutra says, beauty of form, strength, adamantine stability. That's a goal within this very physical manifestation of yoga. And I want to end with a great American poet and commend you to read the whole thing. It's very long, and I only excerpted a little bit of it, but I sing the body electric. And I'm going to go all the way to the end. The circling rivers, the breath, and breathing it in and out. The beauty of the waist, and thence of the hips, and thence downward toward the knees. The thin red jellies within you or me, the bones and the marrow and the bones, the exquisite realization of health. Oh, I say, these are not the parts in the poems of the body only, but of the soul. Oh, I say now, these are the soul. So I wanted to give a little bit of literally a shout out to the inseparability of body and spirit across traditions. So thank you.
Hey, wonderful presentation, Dr. Chappell. It's very inspiring. It made me want to actually move my body after sitting here for a couple hours. So thank you for the reminder about the importance of embodiments and the release of constricting energy, as you so eloquently put it. So thank you very much for those thoughts.